Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a pretty exciting video for you guys as we do now have a new all-time high here for Bitcoin. In today's video, we're going to jump into the Bitcoin price chart and touch on what this means for the rest of the market. And then more importantly, we're going to jump into the altcoin market, discuss how we see things playing out in the short term for the altcoins as we're most likely approaching a local top here for Bitcoin. And we should start to see some of that capital rotate into the altcoin market before entering a short corrective phase. So lots to cover in today's video, guys. Let's jump into it. So firstly, just having a look at Bitcoin, guys, it was literally only just last week when we were down here at these price levels and I was talking about how Bitcoin's most likely going to make a new all-time high in October, and we have shot up super fast, and right now we do have that new all-time high now set at 125,000. And most importantly, Bitcoin is tracking along to our fractal here that we've pulled from 2021. So I don't want to spend too much time talking about Bitcoin in today's video because what I'm most likely expecting here is a little bit more chop for Bitcoin before we do push a little bit higher and then go in for that ABC correction, which will most likely come in late October and early November before things could get really exciting and we could be going into the final stages of the market here. Now, another reason I think Bitcoin's most likely going to perform like this is because if we have a look at the M2 money supply, which is here in yellow, you can see that the M2 also does point to something playing out quite similar here on Bitcoin. And we are looking at Bitcoin on the daily time frame here, but you can see if we do line up the M2's top here with Bitcoin's top, our fractal top, we also line up the lows here with the lows, and on our fractal you can see that the M2 money supply is pointing for Bitcoin to push to about 131,000 before going in for a shallow ABC correction. However, our fractal points for Bitcoin to fall a little bit shy of that at about 128,000 before we go in for a deeper ABC correction. So as far as I'm looking for the price chart of Bitcoin to play out, it's most likely that one of these two scenarios ends up playing out. But I think what we'll see is a lot of that capital actually rotate into the altcoin market, and we should start to see the altcoin market actually break out from the highs here. As you can see, if we have a look at total 3 here, which is the altcoin market excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, we are right back at those highs. This top black line is the previous all-time high, and this bottom black line is the high that was set back in December of last year. And right now we are just edging right back at these levels, looking for the breakout. And like discussed in last week's video, this fractal here, which was pulled from 2021, shows that we have seen very similar altcoin behavior during this very similar stage of the market cycle. And it's most likely that if we are to continue performing like 2021 for Bitcoin here and the altcoin market like we've seen so far, that what we should see next is essentially the altcoin market break out from these levels and then come for a back test of the previous high. This then takes me into XRP and how I'm seeing things play out here in the short term for XRP. And what I'm also expecting is XRP to push from these current levels now to about $3.40 to $3.50. And what we'll most likely see when we see this back test for the altcoin market, when we see Bitcoin come in for this ABC correction, if it wants to be a shallow ABC like we can see here on the M2 money supply, where it just simply is a back test of the previous high. Before then, maybe we can see Bitcoin going to a bit of a corrective phase and then move higher for that final push. Then this will most likely be the same moment when I think something like XRP will come in for this correction, and then hopefully we can see a bounce from these levels and price continue to play out like they did in 2021, which from these price levels was about a 200 to 300% price increase on XRP. And for the rest of the altcoin market, what we ended up seeing from this stage here was the expansion that ended up playing out here that we can see on the right side, and this was the high from 2017. This is the altcoin market breaking out through the highs like we've discussed on the fractal. This is the back test that we're discussing now. And then what ended up playing out next was the altcoin market after that back test, pushing higher in value by almost 200% over the course of about 60 days, which if we come back and have a look at this fractal overlaid on how price is reacting today, that would point to us breaking out, back testing this previous high, and then pushing about 200% higher here for the altcoin market, which again, just like in 2021, this final stage is where I'll most likely be looking for coins like XRP to top out, but not the rest of the market, because like we touched on in last week's video, when Bitcoin topped here in 2021, this was essentially when XRP topped, but the rest of the altcoin market, when Bitcoin went into this retracement here, this is when we've seen the top come in for things like Dogecoin, Solana, and Ethereum here. But guys, I don't want to go too deep in this video, but just cover the short-term price action, as I am looking for Bitcoin to push a little bit higher, most likely this week. And during that final move for Bitcoin is when I think XRP is going to push a little bit higher and outperform here in the short term. And I also think Total 3 is going to outperform in the short term and catch up to Bitcoin, as we have been seeing the Bitcoin dominance start to climb back up again during Bitcoin's breakout here. But guys, we do officially have a new all-time high here for Bitcoin. It came much faster than I think a lot of people were expecting, but no surprise considering that a lot of investors and market participants ended up becoming bearish right down here at these levels last week. So until next time, guys, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions about what we discussed today, feel free to drop them down below in the comments section, and I'll keep you guys updated with how this ends up playing out in the next video.